BruCON t-shirt.
Bonus. Thank you.
Okay, the next two speakers are like a tag team wrestling team. The first one will tell you how you can gather information using information on the internet and other public information sources. And the other Chris will tell you what you can do with this information. So let's give a big applause for the first speaker, Chris Gates, Open Source Information Gathering.
All right, thanks everyone. Chris Gates, we're going to talk about OSINT. Oop, what happened? Went crazy here. All right, so this is me. I blog carlonage.attackresearch.com. I'm a new member of the Metasploit project. Attack Research, I'm a new member of that. And you can follow me on Twitter. If you want more, you can use what hopefully I'm going to teach you by the time I'm done here, or you can bribe me with beer afterwards as well. So I'm not going to try to read every slide, but I will read this one to you. So information gathering denotes the collection of information before the attack. The idea is to collect as much information as possible about the target, which may be valuable later. And so that's like Christian Martello, who's out of Spain, and he'll actually be down at Source Barcelona next week if you want to catch some other info gathering stuff by him. Some other, I think it's from Wikipedia, is an OSINT, Open Source Intelligence, an information processing discipline that involves finding, selecting, and acquiring information from public sources and using that to gain and produce actionable intelligence. And that's kind of why I picked that, was the actionable intelligence part. So taking, not saying I have a whole bunch of hosts, or I have a whole bunch of emails, or I have a whole bunch of metadata, taking all that information and being able to do something with it when you do a full scope pen test. So basically when I look at this, I say I wanted to turn domain X, company Y, whoever is paying me or whoever we're going after, I want to turn that into a shell, right? Everybody loves popping one of those. Or, more importantly, and what I think Chris and I are going to talk about, is turning that information into data. And what makes the company money? One of our big things we like to preach is if you can get your customers and your clients to stop thinking about pen testing and security as boxes on a network and more about what makes that company money, you can start to drive home real security. At least that's kind of what I preach. So that's the stuff that makes them money. That's the stuff that we're really trying to protect. And that's the stuff that I want to find if I'm getting paid to pen test you. So why do it? It simulates real-world reconnaissance. Some people have talked a little bit about that. We're all about real-world. The problem is a lot of the real-world pen tests we get put on, we can touch 15 boxes in the DMZ. I can't send a client-side attack. I can't do this. I can't do that. Attackers don't work that way. So we want to, anything on the net is in scope for a bad guy, right? So users are fair game. I'm not going to say, well, they're kind of off limits. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings because they didn't get their user awareness training. And then any boxes I own are in scope. No boxes are off limits. And more importantly, as a company, do you know where your information that you put out there is and what information have employees or other people put out on the net about yourself? So those are some important questions to ask that most companies I find don't. They're like, oh crap, I didn't know you could enumerate everyone in my domain. That's not good. So here's our typical pen testing methodology. I think everyone who's owned a copy of Hacking Exposed, minus the right report, you've seen that. That's what we focus on currently. We're really, really good at scanning. I can port scan about 50 different ways. I can exploit stuff. I got Core, Canvas, Metasploit, and I can write the report and get paid. So here's what an attacker does, is I discover what makes they want to discover what makes the company money or what's valuable. I'm going to do whatever it takes, and I'm going to steal it. Right? That's the real-world hacking methodology. And that's when you pull your full scope guys and your red team guys in. That's what you need to be trying to have those guys do for you. So definitions. I worked really hard to find the worst piece of clip art I could find for the sad face. I hope it worked. So a couple types of information gathering. We got passive, semi-passive, and active. So with passive, we take great care that the organization we're taking a look at doesn't know it's being profiled. It's very time intensive, it's slow, we don't send any packets to the target. So if we want to look at something on the site, we got to hope there's a Google cache of it. We got to do all these other things. So your key for there is passive, no traffic. Semi-passive is where we would say we're going to profile the target with things that would appear normal. So if they serve up a web page, I can go to the web page. I'm not going to throw a directory buster at it and try to find every directory on there. I'm not going to wget it yet because that's not normal traffic for a website, but normal profiling, things that wouldn't be too out of normalcy. And then we have active. So in a good organization, active profiling should be detected. You're going to start wgetting the whole site, making a mirror. We're going to look for unpublished servers. We're going to do DNS lookups. Try to find out everything the company owns. Start pulling down every file. And if you find someone that pulls down every file on your whole website, someone's probably doing some intelligence gathering on your organization. So we call that some abnormal traffic. And then we have two general categories. We have infrastructure, which is all those things that make the internet work, and then we have people and organization, and we'll go into that. So infrastructure, any organization on the internet has an internet presence, and there's all kinds of things that make that presence usable. So DNS, routing, BGP, servers, you're serving something up. So infrastructure profiling is pretty easy to do and automate. It's much more easier because all that stuff has to automatically get filtered around the internet to work. The people organization stuff is much more manual. So this is kind of how I want to visualize infrastructure. I want to know how things fit together. But really, this is what I want to make. I want to make one of these on a target without them knowing I'm doing it, at least from a remote perspective. So that's just a big giant diagram full of stuff, but you get the idea. And then so for people and organizations, I want to know how many people support the organization. Who runs, well, how runs the company, but also who runs IT, who runs the finance, who are the important people, who are the decision makers, who are the guys that need to allow me access, who are the people that I need to social engineer to get the information that I want. And what's difficult about this is it's much more manual, it's hard to automate. How do I know which Chris Gates is the right one? How do I know which John Doe is the right one? A computer is not going to be able to do that. Maltego may spit out, 10 John Does. It's going to take a human analyst to look at that and say, that John Doe goes with that email and that Facebook profile. That's the right guy. That's who I need to go for. So that's kind of what we're doing. I want to link as many people on the net to an organization as I can. So where does it come from? Web 2.0. I love Web 2.0. Ever since that, it's all the, I'd say, Chris would probably agree, I'm going to bring in, is that that's where all the information is now. Everyone gives it to me freely. Yeah, I want everyone to know all my business all the time. Where's our Twitter guy, right? And then all the other public stuff that, public data and records, so Choice Point and then Telus, all these stuff that gets imported into this giant database that people get made on people. Private data we pay for, and then more importantly, data that's placed there by our target organization on purpose, and then data placed there by the target's users. All that making sense? Am I lying? Anybody think I'm lying yet? One? Okay. So how do I find it? Information that's mandatory for the web, and Sharon talked about this a little bit this morning. Your DNS records, your web stuff, your mail, name server records, who is information, data that's placed there by the target, and then voluntary, and then also by law. A lot of this information that we need is, anybody that's got stock is required to file reports every year. That information can be useful to us. And then also plenty of information that's placed there by the target's users. I just got to slow down. So considerations. All that data can be hard to sort through. We need some sort of automated analysis tools that help us out. So Maltego is great for that. Has anybody not heard of Maltego? Everybody's heard of Maltego? A couple people? All right, go. We're going to talk about Maltego quite a bit. And then other data, it's much easier for a human to go through that data. And Maltego is actually just now created Maltego Mesh, which is actually a Firefox plugin, which allows you to, as you browse, say, that's important, that's important, that's important, send that to Maltego, and we can start working with that data. So that really helps for that human piece. So hopefully some useful practical examples. So for infrastructure intelligence gathering, when I do pen tests, I'd like to know as much about the target networks and net blocks of an organization as possible. We typically get told, hey, this is company X, I have to find everything that company X owns publicly. So I'd like to know if that company has presence in other companies by checking other top-level domains, and then I want to build that infrastructure diagram that we had that I showed earlier. So this is kind of some screenshots of using Maltego to do that. So I picked a company, Telrad.com, which does voice over IP solutions. No real reason. Came across them doing some other stuff. So first thing we wanted to do is we want to identify other net blocks. So we can see that on your right, their web server is in one net block, and all their mail and FTP is in another net block. So that starts to tell us that, hey, probably hosting web in a colo, probably handling our own mail and FTP. So it's also important, if we know they're in a colo, is it in scope to go after the whole VPS? Can I attack one of the other sites that are on that host to get to them? Some other things that are usually not in scope, but be nice if they were more. So using Maltego, we can span out to other top-level domains. So we say, hey, right-click, search for other top-level domains. Hopefully you guys can see that. So we can see that we had info, biz, CA, EU, co-UK. All that may be in scope for our pen test, and it's for sure our client wants to know that we can actually find that information like a real bad guy could. If the London office is the weak link, well, I'm going to go after the London office because I probably have a trust relationship with the US office, which has the data that I want. You can use it to brute force DNS names. You can basically throw dictionary attack and Maltego at that, and we'll start to look for common DNS names. We can turn those into net blocks, and then once you have other net blocks, you can say, hey, for every class C, I want to know, do the reverse lookups and show me everything that's in those class Cs. Yeah. So, and also, like I was just talking about with Maltego Mesh, as you're browsing a site, you can say, oh, here's the telrad.com site, but also on that site is, I don't know if I can read it, telrad.com, cogni.com, which is somebody that bought those guys out, and then telradcogni.com. So also those IPs and those net blocks may also be in scope as the company has expanded out over the years. So tools to get it done. Maltego is my favorite. You can use some of the online tools like ServerSniff, RobText, Kles.net, all those. And the cool thing about most of those is most of those websites, all the websites that do that traffic, they are the ones sending traffic to that site, not your organization's IP address, right? So I don't want them to know that, whatever company that Attack Research is footprinting these guys. I'll let Kles.net do the damage, I'll let ServerSniff do all that stuff, and then when they go to look in the logs, it's coming from ServerSniff, and everyone in the world is using those guys, so it's going to be hard to attribute any open source information gathering back to me. And some other tools, rsnakesphere.pl is a good place to grab a host list for Maltego. So people in an organization. I'm flying. So to create effective and deliver effective client-side attacks, we need to develop a great company profile and personnel profile. So we want to prepare, well, I'll let you read it. You can prepare for social engineering engagements. We want to gather all that information. Things I want to ask myself as I'm doing the OSINT part of the pen test. Can I identify key personnel? Some places will just slap them on the website and you know everybody, and that's always awesome. Then sometimes they don't. You have to really start digging to find out, who are the partners, who are the people that actually own the company, who are the people really running stuff, who's the head of IT, who's the CTO, who's the CIO. Can I develop an understanding of the corporate culture before I go after that? So if I'm going to go into an organization, if I'm going to do it Chris Nickerson style and throw on my shirt and walk in there, I need to understand the corporate culture. I can't do that if I don't do any research. You can't just show up and just walk in and be like and fit in. So we need to find all that if it exists. So within that, one of the first parts of a client-side social or client-side pen test, harvesting emails. I want to know what kind of emails can I gather off the net And that's important for the company to know as what kind of internet footprint they have for that and what information has been placed out there. So if I can pull 1,000 emails down from Google on, sorry, it's a long day. If I can pull 1,000 emails down from Google, it's important to know that because that's going to be the people that are going to be getting the initial fish too. Hopefully that made sense. So a cool tool for doing that is the Harvester. It's also by Christian of Edge Security. You can see there it's doing, it searches like PGP for PGP keys and the email addresses associated with that. It does Google. It does account names for LinkedIn. So we can see that we found a whole bunch of LinkedIn accounts for people that say they work for Telrad. We can do the same thing in Maltego. Once we have a domain specified, we can do like a search for email addresses and pull those in. Does that seem useful? That I don't have to use Google Dorks and anything? I can just use an automated tool to pull that stuff out. All right, I got one guy shaking his head, so I got one guy awake. It's cool. And so also, we found those other top-level domains. We can also search those for emails. That was also handy. So now I have emails for people on .NET. I got emails for people in .co.uk. I got people for emails in the States. Again, maybe they're all sharing the same corporate LAN once you get authenticated. That's important stuff to use. and within Maltego, all those emails can be turned into users. So we've got Alet Lavaro in the middle there. She's got a LinkedIn profile that Maltego was able to find for us, who was also able to turn it to a person. And from a person, we can start searching for phone numbers and documents and everything else. So Rebecca Ratchame is all over the place, who used to work for Telrad. So she's got her Flickr account, so we can go check out and see what she's sharing. And LinkedIn, maybe we can go be her new friend. Like I said, so once we have these emails and we have these LinkedIn associations, now's the time to start saying, oh, I'm into voice over IP stuff. Why don't you and I link up? We can start collaborating and doing things. And you can see we found like 376 LinkedIn accounts when I ran that. So obviously I couldn't put them all on there. So 376 possible leads to people to be new friends with prior to my engagement. So tools to get that done: Maltego, the Harvester, Passive Recon. Harvester kind of runs into some issues sometimes. The Google will keep changing their regex, and then all of a sudden stuff doesn't work. So Maltego is pretty good. Metadata. Anybody done any research with document metadata? All right, a couple people. Great. So useful extensions that I've found in the past. That's not a complete list, but some are useful. Maltego, again, does this for us. So we have a domain. We say, hey, search for documents on the web for us. So we found a whole bunch of documents. Now, by default, it doesn't use Google, but you could probably change it to Google, and it would probably work. And then you can also use MetaGoofil, which will also do the same thing. It goes and searches Google for various file types, PowerPoints, documents, Excel, the OpenOffice equivalents, downloads all those, and does some analysis on those documents to try to pull metadata out of those. So, FOCA is another thing. Anybody heard of FOCA? Just released a new version of that. It's pretty handy. So that's kind of what it looks like. Some of the documents, the information you can get out of that. So you can get where it was saved to, the username of the person that did it, when it was downloaded, when it was saved, what version of Acrobat used that. So this isn't a perfect example because it was from 2007, but if you could find one from 2009 and you know they're using Adobe Acrobat 9, hey, that's useful information to know as I start to think about what kind of client sides I want to throw your way. And what MetaGoofil does with the document metadata starts to discover usernames, so it extracts all that information out of that and gives you possible usernames for the organization. So if I've gone through and discovered that the email naming convention is first name dot last name, I now have a ton of emails that I can create based on knowing that. And this actually worked for me really well. I had a pen test, and we did an organization that global organization, but I was only pen testing one piece of it in the States. So everyone's email address was like at Motorola.com. It wasn't Motorola, but it was at Motorola.com. But if I just found all the email addresses for Motorola, that wouldn't have done me any good. I could have got somebody anywhere in the world. So we were able to use MetaGoofle on the site. I pulled down every document they had and pulled out all the usernames for that. And then the email that I sent actually went to people that were local to the organization we were taking a look at. So it's a useful method if maybe your email searching isn't yielding too many results, or just to add, when you're throwing a fish out, you want to try to hit as many people as possible on your first one. Any questions so far? No? Maltego also does that, and Maltego's handy is because I can now link usernames and people to the web. So it will not only extract what versions of things are running, but also say, oh, hey, there's Doran, there's Rebecca, there's whoever, and now I can start running that same transform that I did where I showed you I had their LinkedIn account, their Flickr account, any Spock stuff. So it's handy. Does anybody think this stuff is useful so far? Garbage? All right, a couple people don't think it's garbage. I can say that before we do a pen test, I probably spend at least a week doing this on an organization. Some people use like 4 hours, and we probably spend a week just trying to gather all this information, develop that network map, get a list of emails, and we typically deliver an OSINT report to the companies too, so they understand what kind of information is freely available if someone's actually out there looking for it. Metadata is also useful for showing what versions of software are being used. So is it Microsoft Office, is it Microsoft Word, what version of PDF Maker, what version of Adobe was being used, which is somewhat useful. Microsoft has gotten to making it very generic, but there are some differences. Obviously, if it's a DocX or a PowerPoint X, where they know they're using 2007, and you can actually take a look at the metadata inside those and determine that if you weren't sure. We can also see the difference between it's an organization using OpenOffice versus Macintosh, Office on Mac or regular Office. So I think that's pretty useful. If I know it's an OpenOffice shop, I know that I don't need to bother trying any of my regular Microsoft Office exploits because it's not going to work. Okay. And then, so those some issues with MetaGoofle. libextract totally sucks for newer PDFs. That's kind of what you get. PDF 1.4. You can use the Ruby PDF parse library to actually pull a little bit more data. So what that's showing is that's the same document. So one with MetaGoofle and the libextract, and the other one with some Ruby that just calls PDF parse on that. So quite a bit more information. I get to created, change dates, author email, who made it. So a lot more useful information. Oh, it's on Windows. Good to know. So other tools to get done. I think Chris is going to talk about a few more when he talks, but I didn't talk about Gulag. What Gulag and CERT do is actually you give it a domain, and it will actually try like every Google dork in the database against that domain, looking for any low-hanging fruit. So also another good tool. What? Yeah, and you have to go so slow that you really need that week to do that because it's got a pretty high timeout. If anybody's interested in the Ruby code, they can send me an email. So, other tools, so organization profiling. So I've got some users, I got some people that I think work in the organization. I can also use all these online networking and HR tools to find employees. Most have APIs, so if you can code a little bit, you can usually just write some code to query that information, and you usually get back more information than you'll get just by browsing to the website. You can also write local transforms in Maltego if you want, so anything that can be accessed over an API, Web 2.0 stuff, Maltego can be written if you can write some Python to actually call that stuff out and do it for you. Pretty handy stuff, and that way you don't have to keep going to the website or writing crappy little Ruby snippets of code. So, bunch of sites to get that done. Anybody heard of these sites? Anybody members of these? Like Spoke is awesome if you're a paying member. You can get so much information about people, all the 123 people, Zoom info. It's like, hey, I want to know what company this is, and this company has 60 users, and if you ask me, I'll give you all that name and email and everything else. So if someone's paying you several $1,000s for a pen test, you can probably afford the $24.95 to get all that information to make your life that much easier. Oh, too fast. And organization people profiling. So handles are awesome. They're usually unique. So if you want to pick on Benny later, you can see all the stuff that he's taken and all the stuff that he hasn't taken. That may be useful. Again, if I want to know who works for who and where they're hanging out, if I want to start developing rapport with people, cool, he's on Facebook, he's on Twitter, I can track these guys down, I can follow them, start interacting with them. Some more examples, so tweeps, if you just want to start looking for handles and verifying that people are who they say they are. So Maltego is awesome because it allows you to do a bunch of Twitter transforms now. So once you've gotten a person down to their Twitter account, which we found, right, because they got a unique handle, we can start to say, hey, I want to know who this person received tweets from, who they sent tweets to, and then who wrote people to, and then you can also start to see, I think in the next slide, who they're friends with, and who they're, so who they're affiliates with. So this is just saying, hey, Chris got, what's up? Yeah, so you only have 5 friends, so you're a perfect example to do for this. When it's BruCON and they have 2,000, it's a lot of data to wade through. It's not any fun. I started trying to do that and gave up. Then we can see who they write tweets to, who they receive tweets from. So this is one that the Perturba guys are nice enough to use me as an example without my permission, but that's out there. So that's me. They can see who I have, who I've talked to lately when they took that screenshot. And then they can start to say, okay, who is that person friends with that I was talking to? And so we can just see who's mutual friends. So does anybody think that's useful? Yeah, so as I'm targeting an organization, especially organizations that are maybe not so security dependent, where we're always yakking, but maybe people that are, hey, my friends are on Twitter and we're going to yak about work and all that. I want to be friends with a bunch of Cisco people if I'm about to go break into somewhere at Cisco, right? So let's start being friends with all these Cisco people, especially when we can search by location. We can start searching. Maltego has all this data. You can say, I want to know everyone in Belgium on Twitter. Okay, cool. Let's pull all that down and we can start working with that data. And then tons of information. So, hey, if you're going to take a look at Bank of America, it's awesome when people tell you that they work for Bank of America, where they live, and what their job is. So we got hey, I'm a Bank of America manager, an internet marketer. Cool. I'm sending you an email. Yeah, exactly. Same thing for Cisco. A lot of this information is put out in the public domain. Not that it's all bad. I mean, we're all marketing. We're proud of where we work, or some places, BruCON is on Twitter, so it can gather information and people wanting to come to the cons. It's not always bad, but it can be used, and I don't think most organizations don't understand the impact of, hey, all your IT guys are on Twitter talking about all your office work and all your office issues. Same thing, tons of information in the public domain. This is another example of using Maltego Mesh to actually say, cool, I know that this guy's now the chairman of the board. Let's add him to Maltego. Within Mesh, I can do all the things listed on the right there. I can search for him in Google. I can search for him in, Wank, Facebook, Spock, Google News. So does he have a Facebook account? Does he have all these other things? And like I said, you can also find all the key players in the organization, send them to Maltego, and then start doing all that other stuff that we've been doing in the previous slides. So some tools to get it done. Maltego Mesh. There's all these websites that will do like a little Ajaxy, check your username, search type stuff. So know them, friends call me, name check. All pretty handy if you want to find out where people hang out. So totally flew through that. Sorry. So if someone doesn't have some considerations as we get into some more full scope testing. So if someone doesn't have a strong internet presence, can I become that person? That may be something that we want to do, or less intensive, can I just create a new company employee and make new friends? right? Can I create Gmail accounts? Can I register them on LinkedIn? Can I do all these weird things? So just as a kind of a thought to that, I stole this slide from the Paterva guys who have their little, this app does not exist, auto person stealer generator thingamabob, but it's pretty cool. I didn't code that, but you can certainly do it pretty quickly with just browsing to the websites that you want to make and becoming that person. So up next is Nickerson to hopefully show you what to do with all that information that we've gathered. And so, if useful resources to educate yourself. So Paterva, they make Maltego Mesh. It's like $340 for a year license. It's probably the best deal as far as a security tool goes. And then Christian and Larry and Mubix all doing research and information gathering and staying active in all that. Yeah. That one? Attacking with that information? Do you want to? Oh, you want me to? Attacking the person with that. Want to know what if I'm going to send a client-side attack? I want to know, hey, are they a Mac guy? Are they a Linux guy? Are they a Windows guy? You know, where do they hang out? You know, all these we've had in the past, all that nifty, cool ActiveX control overflows. So for like Facebook, so hey, if you're on Facebook every day, when the next Facebook O Day comes out, it's the first one I can send to. And really just, you know, if you can, I guess if you can create a little bit of mystery about them, and I don't know if that's really my boss or not. I mean, I'm going to answer him just in case. That kind of answer that? Put me on the spot. Any other questions? Sorry, I kind of went through that pretty fast. Trying to get it over with. You got it? Everyone's got it. Everyone's going to go home and know everything about their neighbor with that talk. I got a whole bunch of time, actually. All right, thanks. Now we can put up the nasty stuff that Chris put about me on Twitter. Not you, the other Chris.
His whole blog's already done.
Yeah, great.
Hi. Given what you just shown, I wonder if it's not, is it something that's evolving, like companies using it to really control employees and the information they're sharing, or employees who are looking for a new job to proactively limit what they're looking for, maybe taking information away from the company or knowledge?
Sure. Good question. Second part of that is, yeah, I don't think a lot of companies are doing it yet, but should start to look at from a Web 2.0 presence what their companies are doing, what information is being told about the company by employees. The first part was, what was the first part of the question?
I don't remember.
It was about, I guess, just, I haven't seen a lot of companies, and Chris may have a different opinion, and Sharon may have a different opinion of, I haven't seen a lot of companies actually taking a look at that information and seeing what's out there. So we did a pen test, and I handed them, you know, all of their top 20 employees, all their LinkedIn accounts, and they didn't know I could do that.
So you're actually also advising companies to change their policy on information privacy?
We don't tell them to do that, but we give them the report so they can be aware of what's out there. So if I hand them a list of 600 emails that I was able to gather or create, they have an idea that a bad guy, if they sell something that's worth something, or they do credit cards or whatever reason, You don't have a business if you're not making money, so there's going to be a reason for your existence. If you show them, hey, here's 600 emails I found, and this is the 600 people that would get the first fish. Here's all the documents that you share, and here's all the metadata and information I can glean from that. You should probably be sanitizing these documents before you place them on the net. That's a really easy, recommendation for people to do that most people don't even think about. Just throw it up there, and you've got, emails and usernames and when it was created, when it was changed, who made it, what it was made on. That's all really good information for any kind of guy that's going to do client-side attacks or social engineering attacks.
Okay, thanks.
Does that help? Anything else? All right, I'm around just like everybody else. I'm around. Just hit me up if you have questions.